Some men walk into a room and the energy changes, others walk in and reality shifts. That's the Sigma male. Not loud, not needy, not trying to prove a thing, but somehow everyone feels it. That eerie silence, that quiet authority, that unspoken threat to every fake alpha and empty extrovert in the room. Here's a fact that'll mess with your head. Studies in behavioral psychology have shown that non-verbal dominance is often more powerful than verbal assertion. And Sigma males? They practically invented that game. They don't need to bark to lead the pack. Their energy does the talking. Their stillness causes chaos. Their existence triggers egos without lifting a single eyebrow. And what happens when people around them realize, oh damn, he's not just different, he's the chosen one? That's when the weird reactions begin. People start competing with ghosts. They try to decode him like he's a riddle from a lost civilization. Some even develop emotional whiplash trying to figure out if they love him or just want to punch a wall because of him. So buckle up, because in this video we're diving into 12 spine-chilling, jaw-dropping, brutally honest things people do when they recognize a Sigma male as the chosen one. No clichés, no fluff. Just raw, uncomfortable truth wrapped in dark charisma and maybe a smirk or two. Number 1, they secretly ask around about him like he's a mythical creature. When people realize a Sigma male is the chosen one, they start asking around about him like he's some kind of urban legend. They won't come to him directly. Oh no, that would require confidence and honesty. Instead, they become subtle investigators, digging for details through side conversations, gossip, and carefully placed questions. You'll hear things like, "Do you know where he's from?" or "What's his deal anyway?" spoken with a mix of curiosity and quiet obsession. It's not about small talk. It's about trying to figure out how the hell someone like that even exists. There's something about his energy that messes with people's heads. He doesn't show off, doesn't beg for attention, and yet he's more magnetic than half the loudmouths in the room combined. That throws people off. They don't understand how someone can command space without chasing it. So instead of engaging him like a normal person, they do what most people do when they don't understand something. They study it from a distance. They start collecting information on him like puzzle pieces. Someone will mention what he does for work. Another person will bring up a story about how he handled a tough situation. Someone else will recall that time he walked away from drama like it didn't exist. And suddenly people are trying to piece together a profile on him. What drives him? Why doesn't he crave attention? How is he so calm when everyone else is losing their mind? What makes this so intriguing is that he never gives them anything to work with. He's not out here trying to build a fan base or overshare to get sympathy points. He moves in silence, leaves no emotional breadcrumbs, and keeps his circle so tight it's practically a dot. That's what drives people crazy. The more mysterious he is, the more they want to know, not out of love, not out of hate, out of pure psychological tension. And the funniest part? Most of these people still pretend like they don't notice him. They act unbothered, uninterested, and emotionally detached. But behind that front, they're hooked. They can't stop thinking about him, not because he said anything special, but because he didn't. That's the kind of grip a Sigma male has when people realize he's not just rare, he's the blueprint. Number 2, they project their insecurities onto him without realizing it. When people finally recognize that a Sigma male isn't playing their emotional games or jumping through their invisible hoops, their insecurities start bubbling up. And instead of dealing with their own feelings, they project them onto him. It's subtle at first. They might call him arrogant because he didn't laugh at their joke, or emotionally unavailable because he didn't dive headfirst into a heart-to-heart after 2 conversations. But what they're really saying is, why doesn't he need my approval like everyone else does? It messes with them on a deep level. They're used to being mirrored, praised, or at least acknowledged. But the Sigma male's emotional independence cuts through all of that. He doesn't offer validation for the sake of peacekeeping. He's not cold, he's just uninterested in pretending. And for people who rely on external validation to feel seen, that silence feels like an attack. So instead of admitting they feel small around him or exposed by his calm detachment, they start throwing labels. It's easier to call him too intense or distant than admit they're uncomfortable because he doesn't cater to their insecurities. He becomes the problem, not their craving for attention, not their emotional impulsiveness, not their need to be needed, just him. What's wild is they usually don't realize they're doing it. They convince themselves they're making fair assessments, but it's all just deflection. The Sigma isn't ignoring them to be rude, he's just not interested in superficial emotional performances. And that quiet refusal to engage with shallow validation routines sends people spiraling. He forces people to feel their own emptiness, not because he tries to, but because he doesn't fill it for them. That's the difference. He doesn't fix, rescue, or perform. He exists as he is. And for many, that's unbearable. So they slap a label on him. It gives them something to hold on to, a way to feel like they're in control of the narrative. But deep down, they know what's really happening. They're just uncomfortable with someone who refuses to shrink so others can feel taller. And nothing makes insecure people more nervous than someone who doesn't flinch in the face of being misunderstood. Number 3, they start asking deep questions, then get uncomfortable with the answers. When people start catching on that a Sigma male isn't your average surface-level guy, curiosity kicks in. They want to know what's going on behind that calm stare and composed energy. So they ask deep questions, not because they're ready for the truth, but because they think it'll be intriguing or even entertaining. They expect some poetic, Pinterest-worthy quote or a mysterious one-liner they can brag about decoding later. But when he actually answers, the room changes. He doesn't give fluff, he gives substance. He speaks with clarity that cuts through illusions. His answers have layers. They reveal how deeply he's thought about life, power, people, failure, freedom. And that's when things start getting uncomfortable. Because suddenly it's not fun anymore, it's confronting. His honesty doesn't sound edgy or romantic. It sounds like someone who has wrestled with darkness, torn apart fake beliefs, and rebuilt himself with brutal self-awareness. That kind of truth isn't warm. It's sharp. It exposes how shallow most people's thinking really is. So what do? They either withdraw awkwardly or start mocking what they don't understand. They'll laugh it off, change the subject, or say things like, "That's deep," while looking for the nearest exit, or worse. They'll try to reduce his insight to some dramatic sob story or assume he's just been through stuff, as if depth is a side effect of trauma and not the result of conscious inner work. They're uncomfortable not because he said something wrong, but because he said something real. Most people aren't ready for real. They want bite-sized, feel-good answers that fit inside their emotional comfort zone. But a Sigma male's truth doesn't play by those rules. He talks about human nature without sugarcoating it. He sees through manipulation, ego games, and self-deception, and he isn't afraid to name them out loud. That kind of clarity unsettles people who have spent years lying to themselves just to stay functional. So eventually they stop asking. Not because he changed, but because they weren't ready to meet him where he really lives. Beneath the noise, beneath the masks, in that raw, quiet space most people avoid. On number 4, they start copying his aloofness thinking. It's the secret sauce. When people realize the Sigma male draws attention without trying, they make the classic mistake. They think it's his aloofness that makes him powerful. So they start copying it. They stop talking as much. They fake being distant. They put on this moody, mysterious front like they've just returned from a silent retreat in the mountains. But the result isn't power, it's cringe. Because here's the brutal truth. You can't fake what the Sigma has earned. His aloofness isn't a strategy, it's not some social costume he puts on to look cool. It's who he is, built from years of solitude, observation, and self-mastery. His detachment comes from understanding people, not running from them. He knows how the game works. So he chooses not to play it. That's why his energy hits differently. It's not silence born from insecurity, it's silence born from clarity. But when others try to mimic it, it backfires spectacularly. They end up looking emotionally constipated or weirdly robotic. They answer questions with dry, one-word responses and think they're being deep. They ignore people and call it having boundaries. They stare off into space, hoping someone asks what they're thinking just so they can drop a vague, recycled quote about energy. It's all an act, and people can feel the difference. The Sigma didn't get his presence from acting like he doesn't care. He actually doesn't care, not out of arrogance, but because he's detached from needing attention or approval. That's something you can't imitate unless you've genuinely outgrown external validation. Most people trying to act aloof are still dying for someone to ask them what's wrong or are you okay? They want the mystery to attract interest, but real mystery isn't created. It's earned through depth, self-discipline, and emotional sovereignty. So while the Sigma just moves through life effortlessly, others try to reverse engineer the vibe and end up looking like they're stuck in a bad indie movie. And the irony? The more they try to act like him, the more obvious it becomes that they're nothing like him. Because power isn't in pretending to be unreadable. It's in being so sure of yourself that you don't need to be read at all. Number 5, they feel both threatened and obsessed at the same time. The Sigma male walks in and doesn't ask for attention. Yet somehow he becomes the measuring stick. He's not flashy, not loud, not trying to dominate anyone. But his presence feels like a silent audit. And that's exactly what drives people into emotional limbo. They don't know whether to admire him or compete with him. And while they're stuck in that confusion, he doesn't even notice. That's what burns the most. There's something about his calm focus that feels personal to people who lack it. He's not ignoring them to make a statement. He's just unbothered. But that indifference is what flips the switch in their heads. Suddenly they start overthinking. Why didn't he look at me? Did I say something wrong? Is he judging me? Nope, he's just busy being himself. But to fragile egos, his lack of reaction feels like rejection. So now they're trapped in a weird cycle. They want his attention, but also resent him for not needing theirs. They admire how self-contained he is, but it also makes them feel like they're not enough. That tension is addictive. It makes people obsess over him while simultaneously feeling exposed around him. Like being next to someone who doesn't play the validation game reminds them just how much they still do. This is why you'll see people talking about him all the time, but in contradictions. One minute they'll say, there's something powerful about that guy, and the next, he's probably just emotionally unavailable. It's not about him, it's their pride trying to protect itself. Because admitting someone intimidates you and fascinates you at the same time is a level of self-awareness most people don't reach. So they either overcompensate by trying to outperform him or downplay him to others. He's not that deep, or he just thinks he's different. But the truth is, deep down, they know. They've met someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, and doesn't shrink. And it stirs something uncomfortable. The Sigma male doesn't walk around trying to be superior. He just isn't competing. And that, in a world addicted to comparison, feels like a threat, wrapped in mystery. And still, they keep watching. Because no matter how triggered they are, the obsession doesn't end. It just gets quieter and deeper. Number 6. They feel a weird urge to confess things to him. There's something strange, almost unsettling, about how people end up pouring their secrets out to a Sigma male without even knowing why. He's not prying. He's not fishing for information. In fact, he's usually the one giving the least away. And yet people start confessing things they haven't said out loud in years. Not because he's trying to play therapist, but because his calm, judgment-free presence feels like emotional amnesty. The Sigma male isn't shocked by people's mess. He doesn't flinch at flaws or react with dramatic sympathy. He listens, really listens, without trying to fix, save, or spin it into gossip later. That's rare. Most people are so used to judgment or unwanted advice that when they come across someone who just lets the truth land, they feel safe in ways they can't explain. Their guard drops before they even realize it. And suddenly they're talking about regrets, fears, and unresolved baggage like it's casual conversation. And here's what makes it more bizarre. He never asks for any of it. He's not sitting there with tell me your life story eyes. He could literally be in the middle of doing something else when someone randomly starts venting about their toxic ex or their dad's approval issues. It's like something about his energy opens a side door in people's minds. They don't even mean to let him in, it just happens. It's the power of controlled presence. When someone isn't emotionally leaky, reactive, or needy, people feel like their truth won't be used against them. And the Sigma male has mastered that restraint. He knows the weight of information, so he treats it with respect. That makes people open up more, not less. Ironically, the less he tries to know, the more people want to tell him. But that kind of trust comes with an odd twist. After confessing, many people feel both relieved and vulnerable, like they showed their soul to someone who may never even follow up about it. That's part of the Sigma effect. He doesn't chase emotional closure. He holds space, not out of obligation, but out of quiet strength. And for people who've never been truly heard before, That hits harder than any rehearsed words ever could. Number 7, they romanticize him, then get mad when he doesn't fulfill their fantasy. People love the idea of the Sigma male. The quiet intensity, the aloof charm, the sense that he's carrying a novel's worth of secrets behind his eyes. It's intoxicating. They start building a fantasy version of him in their head, piece by piece. He's the misunderstood genius, the tortured soul, the one who will finally get them. They assign him roles in a story he didn't audition for. And for a while they feed off that illusion. They tell themselves he's just guarded, just waiting for the right person to unlock him. Spoiler, he's not. The Sigma male isn't a blank canvas. He's not sitting around waiting for someone to draw meaning onto his life. He already has his own depth, his own world, and most of the time he's perfectly fine in it, alone. But that clashes hard with the romanticized script others have written for him, because in their fantasy he's supposed to suddenly open up, fall head over heels, and give them some poetic, cinematic ending that validates their dreams. When that doesn't happen, when he stays centered, detached, and completely uninterested in playing out someone else's emotional drama, the disappointment hits like a betrayal. And here's the brutal part. He didn't promise anything. He didn't flirt his way into their expectations. He didn't lead them on or sell them hope. He just existed authentically and quietly. And that alone was enough for people to project onto him. But instead of owning that they created a fantasy, they get mad at him for not living up to it. They say he's cold, confusing, emotionally unavailable. Translation: you didn't give me what I invented in my head. This is where the resentment creeps in. The same people who once romanticized him as deep and enigmatic now label him as distant and detached. Not because he changed, but because their illusion cracked. The Sigma male's refusal to mold himself into someone's fantasy is seen as rejection, even if he never played the game to begin with. It's not that he's cruel, it's just that he values truth over performance. And people who are addicted to emotional fantasies often mistake that truth for cruelty, when really it's just someone refusing to fake love, to keep their daydream alive. Number 8, they pretend not to notice him, but their body language. They'll act like he's not there, like he's just another guy in the background, no big deal, nothing special. But the room tells a different story. The shift in energy when a Sigma male walks in is subtle but real. And the people trying the hardest to ignore him are usually the most affected. You'll see it in the way their eyes flicker toward him when they think no one's watching, in the way their tone suddenly drops or softens, in the awkward silences that bubble up when he simply enters the space. It's not loud or dramatic, but it's loud enough. The funny part is, a lot of people will go out of their way to act uninterested. They'll barely look at him, they won't say his name, they won't ask him questions. They'll even pretend to be more focused on their phones or whatever fake distraction they can cling to. But then their body does the betrayal. Their torso angles in his direction. They mirror his movements without realizing it. They lean in when he talks, even if they're not in the conversation. Some even hold their breath just slightly. The kind of instinctive pause you do when you feel you're in the presence of something unpredictable. What's happening is primal. It's not about him being good-looking or smooth, though he might be. It's about presence. Sigma males carry this rare combination of unpredictability and emotional detachment that keeps people on edge. Not in a bad way. More like they sense he doesn't need them, and that messes with their social compass. Most people are used to being scanned, flattered, or tolerated, but when someone walks in with zero need to impress, suddenly everyone's subconscious gets a little alert. And even when they try to ignore him, they can't. Not really. Because their body has already decided he matters before their ego can play it cool. That's the difference with a Sigma male. He doesn't force respect. He doesn't demand attention. But still, rooms shift when he enters. People listen more closely, conversations get shorter. And those who try to pretend he's invisible, they forget their own tells, because you can fake disinterest with your face, but your nervous system doesn't lie. Number 9, they try to fix him even though he's not broken. There's this weird urge some people get when they meet a Sigma male, the sudden belief that he's broken and needs fixing. They can't just accept him as he is, with all his quiet confidence and unapologetic independence. Instead, they jump in with unsolicited advice, tips on how to open up more, or suggestions on how he could fit in better with the crowd. What they're really saying, without realizing it, is, Tone down your uniqueness so I don't feel so uncomfortable around you. This impulse to fix him isn't about actual care or concern, it's about their own insecurities. The Sigma male's refusal to conform and his lack of need for external validation shines a spotlight on how much these people are trying to shape themselves to fit in. Their discomfort comes from being reminded that someone can be whole and powerful without bending for others, and that unsettles them. So instead of reflecting on their own insecurities, they project the problem onto him. They assume he's lonely, distant, or unreachable, as if those traits are flaws that need correction. They overlook that his aloofness is a shield built from knowing exactly what he wants and doesn't want from life, not a brokenness that needs fixing. The funniest part? Their helpful suggestions usually feel more like demands dressed in kindness. You'd be so much easier to connect with if you smiled more. Maybe try sharing your feelings once in a while. It's like telling a wild stallion to stop running free because it scares the other horses. They want him to water down his fire so they can stand next to him without burning. But the Sigma male doesn't play that game. He's not about to change his core just to make others feel less small. He's whole in his own right, and that wholeness often makes others uncomfortable enough to try and fix him. It's not about him being broken. It's about others being unwilling to face the fact that someone else can be perfectly intact without needing their approval or adjustment. Number 10. They keep tabs on him after he leaves their life. Even after the Sigma male steps out of their lives, some people can't just let him go. They keep tabs on him like a quiet, relentless shadow. It's not about stalking in a creepy way, but more like an unconscious magnet pulling them toward his absence. They scroll through his social media, ask mutual friends about him, or catch snippets of his life from afar, all without reaching out directly. It's almost like they're trying to decode a mystery that was never fully theirs to solve. What's wild is that the Sigma male usually doesn't even try to keep them hooked. He doesn't send follow-up messages or drop hints that they should care. He disappears without fanfare, leaving behind a silence so loud it echoes louder than any dramatic goodbye ever could. And ironically, that very absence speaks volumes, more than most people's constant presence ever manages to say. People feel this empty space and realize it's filled with a kind of power they didn't appreciate when he was around. The Sigma male's quiet withdrawal forces them to confront their own attachment issues, insecurities, or just plain curiosity about what made him so different. It's like he was a puzzle piece in their life that didn't fit, so they quietly check back, hoping to figure out if maybe the edges changed. In the end, his vanishing act becomes a mirror reflecting what they lacked: authenticity, self-possession, and the courage to live life on one's own terms. And no amount of scrolling or whispering through mutual contacts can replace that. The Sigma male doesn't chase, and his silence lingers longer than any shout. That's why even when he's gone, he's never really forgotten. Number 11, they overshare to try to pull him in emotionally. Some people think the fastest way to break through a Sigma male's calm exterior is to unload their emotional baggage on him, like piling on every personal drama, trauma story, or deep insecurity in one go, hoping vulnerability will crack his code. They overshare, thinking drowning him in raw feelings will pull him closer, make him relate, or even force him to open up. The problem? The Sigma male isn't a sponge for emotional chaos. He doesn't respond to drama with empathy because it feels less like connection and more like a trap. Oversharing to him isn't a sign of trust or intimacy, it's a loud warning signal. It screams, "I'm drowning here and I need you to save me," which is exactly the kind of needy energy he steers clear of. His emotional ecosystem thrives on balance and control, not messiness or emotional hijacking. When someone floods him with emotional overload, his instinct is to back off, not lean in. That's not because he lacks empathy or emotions, far from it. He simply knows the value of emotional boundaries and self-possession. He doesn't want to be anyone's emotional crutch or therapist. Instead, he respects those who can carry their own emotional weight without dragging others down. Oversharing feels like a desperate attempt to hijack his focus and energy, which clashes directly with his need for mental clarity and independence. So while others might see oversharing as a shortcut to deep connection for the Sigma male, it's more like emotional noise that drowns out genuine interaction. He's drawn to people who handle their emotional business quietly, thoughtfully, and without trying to trap or manipulate. The truth is, real vulnerability isn't a floodgate. It's a steady, honest stream. And that's a rhythm many oversharers simply can't match. Number 12. They try to expose him publicly, but fail because he's unshakable. When people realize the Sigma male's quiet power, envy often sparks a desperate urge to bring him down a notch. They try to expose him publicly, hunting for mistakes, flaws, or moments of vulnerability they can twist into ammunition. It's like watching a bunch of kids trying to rattle a mountain by throwing pebbles. The difference: the mountain doesn't even flinch. The Sigma male doesn't react out of ego because he doesn't base his worth on external approval or drama. Where others might snap back, or spiral, he stays rooted in his own calm center. His strength isn't loud or aggressive. It's the unshakable kind that refuses to be baited or pulled off course. When attempts are made to mock or discredit him, they simply bounce off, like raindrops sliding down a leaf. This makes him a frustrating puzzle for those trying to provoke him. They expect a reaction, anger, defensiveness, confusion, but all they get is silence, a slight nod, or a measured response that only deepens the mystery. His composure feels like a refusal to engage in petty battles that waste energy. Instead, he wins by not playing their game at all. The envy driving these exposure attempts is just a reflection of how little control others have over him. They want him vulnerable, humanized, or imperfect. Anything to chip away at the image of the untouchable Sigma. But he's already won by simply existing in his own truth, immune to their attempts at drama or character assassination. It's not arrogance. It's not detachment for detachment's sake. It's a deliberate choice to guard his power by not handing over the keys to anyone else's insecurities or inseminations. The Sigma male's victory lies in his unshakable calm, the quiet storm that can't be exposed, broken, or tamed by shallow attempts to undermine him. In the end, recognizing a Sigma male isn't about spotting loud declarations or flashy moves. It's about sensing the subtle currents of unshakable confidence and quiet authority that ripple beneath the surface. People's reactions, whether envy, confusion, obsession, or awkward imitation, are all just echoes of how deeply his presence disrupts their comfort zones. The Sigma male doesn't bend, break, or perform for validation. He simply is, a force quietly rewriting the rules of influence without saying a word. And that in itself is a kind of power most can't understand, let alone challenge. So when you see the way the world tries to catch him slipping, tries to pull him in, or pretends not to notice, know this: the Sigma male has already won. Not because he fights loudest, but because he stands firm when everyone else is busy chasing noise. That's the legacy of the chosen one: unstoppable, unapologetic, and undeniably extraordinary. If you found this deep dive into the world of Sigma males as fascinating as I did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on content that cuts through the noise. Drop a like if this resonated with you, and share your thoughts or wild Sigma encounters in the comments. I'm here for all of it.